Great.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mel Robertson, and I'd like to welcome you to Happiness is Your Own Damn Fault. What we're talking about is how to drop the baggage, increase your frequency, and live a bliss-filled life. Now, I decided to put this summit together because I want you to know that happiness is available to everyone, no matter the circumstances that you've endured. So no matter what you've been through, you can choose happiness now. Happiness is your birthright. It's your natural state of being underneath all the baggage you've been dragging around with you for all those years. So I wanted to interview people who are truly happy and get them to share with you their secrets on how they let go of the past, stopped worrying about the future, and started living their bliss. Today I'm excited to welcome back Marcy Neuman, my friend. And Marcy began her long and illustrious career as an RN, reverend, and energy healer back in the early 70s. Since that time, she's been in the self-help and people-helping industry, utilizing many modalities within the framework of conventional medicine and non-traditional methods of healing. In addition, she was instrumental in creating a number of specialized programs around Long Island for hospitals, hospice, and other facilities, supporting people in making changes for healthier, happier, and more fulfilling lives. In 2001, Marcy began her very successful private coaching and spiritual counseling practice, which focuses on self-pH, self-love, for physical, mental, and emotional healing, letting go the let-in with HeartShift Coaching. So welcome, Marcy.
Thank you so much, Mel. It's a pleasure to be back here again with you. I know one thing, and that is that where we start out when we start talking and where we end up are often two completely different energy frequencies. So this is bound to be just a fantastic interview.
Yes, I am so excited to see what it has in store. So before we jump in, would you want to take a minute just to share with our audience how you became this HeartShift coach that you are?
Thank you for that opportunity, actually, Mel. I want our audience to know right up front that you use the word became. And it's a very important word because what it does is it acknowledges the fact that we are in process all the time. We are a work in progress. And my becoming the HeartShift coach is really a culmination of the 40-plus years that you just described, in which so many modalities that I was utilizing to help people taught me just so much about human nature, but also our healing nature. And what I've discovered is that our healing nature is one that is innate. It's already within us. But what often happens is that it's so obscured, so blocked by the baggage that you refer to that we can't even get in touch with it. And for me, what happened is I had actually just this incredible personal epiphany that happened in a teepee. And to make a very long story short, but a very important story that I do want to share, is that I was in this teepee that I had snuck into. I had left this party, and I honestly, Mel, was on top of the world. I had everything and anything that anyone could ever want. And I went out into the teepee for the purpose of celebrating that, making a very long gratitude list and taking those couple of moments that had been gifted to me just to be silent. And I went into that teepee and I pulled back the ceiling flap, and the whole teepee filled with these stars, or it felt like it's, filled with the stars. And the energy was shifting all around me. And I knew in that moment that it was a very special moment. And I was lying there making this very lengthy list. And I remember actually I had tears, streaming from my eyes. I was so grateful for everything that I had. And then all of a sudden, like a ticker tape across my mind's eye, it said, "How much longer do I have to do this, Lord?" And I bolted upright, and I became nauseous, and I actually jumped out and I vomited in the bushes. It was so startling to me that I would have these thoughts. It didn't make any sense to me. Why would I not want to do this? Like I said, I had everything. I was so happy. I just had this idyllic life. And then when I went back to Long Island and I started to really delve into it, and I got the help that I needed to delve into it, what I discovered and what I uncovered was this deep unhappiness that I had been suppressing for such a long time. And Mel, this is the baggage that we're talking about. And it's kind of the reverse for a lot of people. But I was masquerading. I was pretending to the point where I was a master of pretense. With fake happiness. I was not happy. In fact, there were very few aspects of my life that I was happy with. And as I allowed my truth to come forward, and we're going to talk more about that later on, I hope. But as I allowed my truth to come forward, I realized that this mastery that I had was really obscuring my ability to see what was authentic in my life and the parts of me connected to that authenticity that I had buried away. And to make a long story short, I decided that in order to save myself and to come back into alignment, that it required that I make some abrupt changes in my life. And I can tell you this, from the outside looking in, people I'm sure thought I was crazy. But I ended up actually leaving my marriage of 26 years. I left my home. I left my job. I left lots and lots and lots of my friends and acquaintances. And I positioned myself where I could start hearing and feeling what my spirit had been trying to tell me for so long. In that process, I also recognized that something miraculous was happening. I had been afflicted with these chronic disorders of digestive issues, constant headaches, panic attacks that would wake me in the middle of the night, and what felt like really tremendous arthritis in my hips, where sometimes I wouldn't be able to get up out of a chair. And when I started to uncover myself, one day I realized that I had no more pain. I had not had a panic attack since I had left my marriage. I no longer required Tums or Advil to be my constant companions.
Isn't that freeing?
And honestly, Mel, I felt like I was 20 years younger. And then people started remarking on how young I looked. People asked me if I had had cosmetic surgery. People were asking me, like, what did you do? Where did you go? What have you had done? And all I had done was put my spirit in the driver's seat.
Oh, I love how you said that.
That's all I had done. And I started to realize that our birthright, as you said earlier, Mel, is to live in alignment with our heart. It's to live in alignment with the urgings and the messages of our spirit so that we can live life the way we are meant to. Happy, healthy, and whole. And from that place, the universe lays itself at our feet.
It absolutely does, doesn't it?
Yes.
Well, I think that's a great segue for me to just jump in and talk about for a second with you. Why is it important that the changes that we make in our life come from our heart and through our heart rather than trying to do it on a mental level and trying to change the way we think that way?
Good question. The truth is you can try to change it with your thoughts. It's just, if you're anything like me, I like to have things happen now instead of 10 years from now.
Right.
So I think one of the things, and one of the most important things actually, is to recognize is that when we're working in our heart, and the heart energy, it turbocharges. It actually catapults us forward. And the reason for that is that the heart energy is already of such a high frequency that you don't need anything else. It is the authentic energy of our being. Right. Our thoughts are a conglomeration of, our past experiences, our perceptions of those, the emotional responses of them, the accumulation of choices gone wild, and everybody else's opinion. And that's the influence of our thoughts. So if you want to live and experience life differently, you need to bypass your thoughts as much as possible and get to the heart of the matter, which is the frequency of love. And I'm talking the God consciousness, the divine consciousness, frequency of energy that is the core of our being. So our thoughts are our baggage. It's what weighs us down. It's our thoughts that depress us, our thoughts that confuse us, our thoughts that run away with us, but never our heart. Our heart message is as clear as the day is long. There are no doubts. There are no fears there. There are no other energies. And that's really important. This love energy is pure. There are no other energies. And the reason that there are no other energies is because it can only attract other energy just like itself. Right. So it can never be anything else. And so when we meet someone heart to heart, we know it, don't we, Mel?
We do. We absolutely do.
Yeah, we have this immediate heart connection. But if we're meeting somebody in the frequency of our thoughts gone wild, all of a sudden we're in judgment of them or in judgment of us. We're doubtful of them, we're unsure of them, we're doubtful of us, we're unsure of ourselves. There is this exchange of energy that is nothing but chaos.
Well said.
And so our heart is the only place where truth abides and where we get everything that we need to live our lives wholly and completely empowered.
So how can one begin to go from operating from a mental level to actually bringing their awareness and getting conscious in their heart and operating through their heart?
Well, there are a number of ways. The most important thing is that each of us has to begin to create this awareness when we are, and be able to distinguish between when we're in our heart and when we're in our head. And what I said just a moment ago is really key. You see, the heart is not going to radiate fear. It's not going to radiate doubt. It's not going to radiate unworthiness or indecision or confusion or chaos or undeservedness. It doesn't radiate any of that. Like I said, it's energy that can only attract unto itself that which it is. So it's important to distinguish where we are. And from my perspective, the easiest way to do that is to start to pay attention to how we feel. If I'm feeling unsure, if I'm feeling insecure, if I'm feeling envious, or I'm feeling separate in any way from universal flow, I'm not in my heart. I'm in my head. And all of those control issues that I spoke of, earlier are in charge of me. They're overpowering me. So I've learned to really pay attention to how I feel. The second thing is that it's really important to focus only on what it is that you do want to experience. And I know we've all heard this in 1,000 different ways. But here's what I suggest. In order to feed what it is that we really want to experience, as I said, we need to be able to recognize it. And so one of the things that I do with my clients is that I have them become love detectives. I have them start to journal every single day all the things in their day that made them smile, either on the inside or the outside. All the things that brought them a little bit of happiness or a sense of ease. All the things that made them feel lighter. The things that made them feel free. These are all aspects of love. And so when we start to, as I said, become detectives, and we go out in our day searching for these things, something magical happens. More of them appear. And what happens is that we become so accustomed to feeling good that the moment that something comes into our vibrational realm that triggers something other than feeling good, and we start to feel dis-ease, it becomes so uncomfortable that it's almost unbearable. We have to
I love the way you put that.
Yeah. We have this, this mechanism where we have to vomit it. We have to get rid of it. We can't bear it anymore. And so what happens when you are playing the love detective is that not only are you raising your vibrational frequency, but for those moments, Mel, where you fall below that frequency, are drawn in some way, you now have a whole book that tells you exactly what you need, exactly what will help you and lift you higher. So you never have to wonder, what can I do to get out of this?
Right. Oh, I love that, having that book to go back to. It's so true, too, that the minute that you become a detective and start looking for what you want, that's how things change. I mean, that's how everything changed for me when I was so miserable. I became what I called myself as a happiness-seeking missile, because that's what I was looking for in my environment, was to find everything that made me feel good, that made me feel happy. I became a seeker of those things so that I could change my underlying vibration of misery. I had to start seeking the things that felt good, and then by focusing on seeking the things that felt good and only looking for those things in my environment, I gradually got happier and happier and happier until I couldn't tolerate anything knocking me out of the zone, you know?
That's right. We get so uncomfortable, we need to shed it immediately. We have to transmute it because we can't bear being in that vibration anymore.
No, I feel like I go around being a transmuter a lot of times, transmuting all the vibrational frequencies.
Yeah.
So speaking about vibrational frequencies, what does heart shifting do to change the vibrational frequency of thought?
Heart shifting, Mel, is based on, number one, the intention to shift your heart, shift your frequency, knowing that it's going to change your life. Just like when you became that happiness missile, okay? You were so miserable that you knew that it was a matter of your survival to get out of that energy of misery. And you also had this innate knowing that happiness was there for you somewhere.
Yeah.
This is so important, Mel, because it's there for each of us. And that happiness, as I said, is not only there for each of us, but it's there in a different way for each of us, which is why it's so important to become a love detective, to know what is going to work for you.
Yeah.
But here's what heart shifting is about. I spoke earlier about, the difference between working from your head or your heart, and the fact that when you work from your heart, it catapults you forward. Well, heart shifting is yet another accelerator. It accelerates the process of shifting your vibrational frequency. And here's how it works. Knowing that every single thing in our lives is created from within. It means that because we are energy beings, that it is energy from within us that is creating it. So if we are unhappy in any way with how we are experiencing life, it means that the only place that change is going to happen is when we begin to tweak our own energy field and give it more of what it needs to elevate it, to shift the frequency. And so heart shifting is a process that I've created where you actually learn exactly what will do that for you. It's completely subjective, based on your own past history, based on your own perceptions, your emotional responses, based on your fears, all of that. And so the process is learning what works for you and giving yourself what you need in order to create the shift energetically. It is the truest form of self-love. Self-love is when our actions are in alignment with what it is that we want to experience. That's it. It sometimes entails self-care. It sometimes entails changing our surroundings, changing our friends, changing our circumstances, all sorts of things. But those are just components. Self-love itself is when we are in alignment and the actions that we take will produce change. So heart shifting is taking where we are right this moment. It requires self-acceptance. Moving from self-acceptance, you then move to where it is that you want to go and giving yourself what you need to close that gap. So let's say, for instance, someone is very jealous by nature, and that jealousy just is constantly coming up, their relationships and their partnerships in everyday life. And there's this knowingness that it somehow is connected to their happiness, but they're not quite sure how. When we look at jealousy or envy, at the end of the day, when we follow that trail, that emotional trail, it comes down to one thing, and that is in some way that person believes that they are not enough. Not enough, not good enough to have or to do what that other person has and does. And so, and this is hypothetical, based on that, what they may need, number one, is, first of all, a reminder of their truth. But what they also might need is, number one, some compassion. Some compassion for the fact that they've just forgotten who they really are. Yeah. Maybe it requires some forgiveness for families who didn't give them what they needed in order to really get what they needed for their own self-assurance and their self-esteem. It's a matter of, and excuse me about that telephone, I didn't realize it was in the room. It's a matter of exploring what it is that they need energetically and making certain that they get these things. What happens is the moment that these other energies are applied, again, you're talking, it's almost this magical response from the universe. The universe says, oh, they remembered we're in partnership. That everything that they need is right here. And in that partnership, everything can manifest. The universe is waiting to be asked for help. It's waiting to be asked to supply what's needed. And so the moment that we begin to reach outside of ourselves and give ourselves what it is that we need, that partnership opens up, and so do our lives.
Sure does. I'm so glad you said it that way. Now, something else that you mentioned, you brought up the word forgiveness a few minutes ago, and I wanted to take a second because I know that, a lot of the baggage that we carry around with us is, not forgiving people who have harmed us or who have done us wrong, and it's a really big thing that we hang on to and have a hard time letting go. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about why is it so important and why is forgiveness the key in really letting go and actually healing? And how can one really begin to forgive?
Great question, Mel. My perspective on that is a little different than what you may have heard in the past.
Well, I like new perspectives, so good.
And again, it's because I work in the heart space. What I've come to know in working with so many people now is that the issue that most people have with forgiveness or not being able to forgive is that they're in their heads, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to forgive from this place of logic, which it cannot happen because
Right.
there are experiences that we've had, from other people, with other people, that are not logically forgivable. And their attempt to do so only creates more confusion and more anger. But it also creates more guilt, and it creates remorse, and it creates shame because they're not able to forget and not able to forgive. And we've all been taught that not forgiving is a surefire way to go straight to hell. So not forgiving is a real issue, isn't it?
Right.
And so this whole attempt to forgive from this place of logic does nothing but dig our hole deeper, because it's adding now these energies of guilt and shame and remorse because we can't do it. And here's what I've found. I've found that forgiveness actually has to happen within us, within our own hearts, but not for the other person, but for ourselves, for believing for one moment that whatever energy that we took on from that experience made us believe that we're not lovable, not worthy, not deserving, or not enough in any way. Every experience where forgiveness is being called for is so painful because it's left an imprint on the shell of our hearts that is trying to enter into the truth of our being. And the truth of our being can only do one thing, and that is repel it. Because the frequency of energy is so far on the other end of the spectrum, it couldn't possibly let that in. And so we remain separate from ourselves. And we project all of that out to other people and remain separate from them and get buried in our guilt, our shame, and our remorse because we can't or won't or couldn't even conceive of forgiving that other person, when in fact what we need to do is to let go of the false beliefs that have been imprinted about ourselves.
Yeah. So how can we begin to forgive for those of us that our hearts are hardened and we're hanging on? How can we start to forgive?
From my perspective, Mel, it's a matter of self-love. When we love ourselves enough to want to relieve ourselves of the weight of unforgiveness, of the power that it has robbed us of the joy that it has robbed us of the health that it has robbed us of the freedom that it has robbed us of, and of the love that it has robbed us of. when we come to that point where we no longer want to give up 1 ounce of any of that. Forgiveness is the hero of the day. It's what saves us from ourselves. It's what gives us new life. And I have now seen this, Mel, in every part of the world where I have worked with people. And this is exactly what happens when we begin to forgive ourselves, to let go of those imprints that left us believing that we are less than anyone or anything, that we are less than the very creative life force that created us and works through us. When we're ready to let go of that imprint, the universe not only lays itself at our feet, but we are full on in partnership with that universal life energy, and we realize that we can create anything.
That's perfect. Well, I think that's actually a great segue, the power to create anything, to give you an opportunity to talk about what it means for you to live a bliss-filled life and live your bliss. What does that look like for you?
Well, for me, it is being in alignment with the messages that my spirit gives me. For me, bliss can only exist when I let go of those imprints that, and they do, pop their little heads up all the time because they're very deeply programmed within us. But the moment that they do, and I recognize it, I stop myself right in my tracks, and I give myself what I need, whatever kind of reminder that that is untrue, and then I move forward. So for me, it's more about the feeling of freedom, the feeling of like unfettered joy.
Yeah, I love that.
That I recognize is my sheer bliss. And so in that place, I always attract these incredible clients to work with that I'm just fully in my purpose when I'm working with them.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, it's incredible. And I get to create all of these wonderful products and programs, and I know that I'm in partnership with the divine exactly the way I'm supposed to. And I get to wear the lenses that allow me to see that I have no limits in what I can do and what I can be and what I can experience and what I can share with others. And I have tears in my eyes thinking about it.
I can feel them.
It gives me those open paths to share this world and to really experience that oneness that we're all meant to experience. And it's a feeling, Mel, of never being alone. It's a feeling of always like being supported and celebrated, and I feel cherished.
I love that. Oh,
And so as you know, I've been playing these last 6 months in Thailand.
Yes.
Which, if you had told me 5 years ago I'd be living in Thailand, I'd say, you're crazy. It was one of those things that when it came to fruition, I realized exactly how many times I had said it in the past. I'd always like to, or I would say someday I'd like to live in another country. I'd like to immerse myself in another culture. I would like to share what I've learned with peoples of another nation. I would like to, and my list would go on. And then all of a sudden, there I was. And it seemed like it happened in the blink of an eye. But when I look back with those proverbial 20 or 20 visions, no. This has been percolating and is fully on orchestrated by the universe in response to past desires that have been in my heart that I never allowed to reach my head. And when the two came into alignment, voila.
Yes, voila.
Yeah, voila. And now I'm creating programs to share this so that other people can come to Thailand and experience exactly what I've experienced. And it's just the most incredible unfolding. It's wonderful, and it makes me smile every time I think about it.
I know. Every time we talk, I can't wait to get caught up on your new adventures and what's been happening. Oh. Well, it looks like we're just about out of time, so I wanted to just give you a minute to talk if you had a free gift you wanted to offer everyone, if you wanted to talk about that for a moment.
I do. My gift actually is on forgiveness. And it's an audio series where I talk about the process of forgiveness and what forgiveness really is, but also how each person can come to the place within themselves of allowing forgiveness to be their friend. So often, Mel, people think that forgiveness is something outside of them, something demanded of them, and they go kicking and screaming, and as much as they want to, it just is out of their reach. And the act of forgiveness is like being your own best friend.
Yeah, it really is.
It's really finally just putting down all the armor, putting down all the weapons, putting down all the fears and saying, please take this from me. Take this from me and let me be free.
Yeah. And it really is so freeing when you can. I remember what it was like just carrying around the baggage of, not forgiving my brother. I had been molested by my brother growing up and then lost him to suicide when he was 20 years old. And I had carried this anger and this hatred and resentment around for so long. And, it wasn't until I was able to, see things from a different perspective and really just see him as a gift to me who really came down to teach my soul whatever I needed to learn and really shift my perspective and be thankful for what he came to teach me rather than see it as something that was intending to harm me, but it was actually for my soul's overall growth that really freed me from all that hatred and the anger. I mean, I was so angry and hateful growing up. And when I finally could forgive him, it released so much of that, and my heart opened, and I could experience love and really love freely.
I mean, what you're describing is the greatest gift of life, to be able to be available, to be open, to receive, and to give love. There is nothing more important in this world, in this life. It's what makes life purposeful.
Yeah. I say that my religion is love.
Mhm. Yep.
Yep.
I'm right there with you.
Oh. So before we go, do you have any parting words you want to share with our listeners?
Yes, I do.
Oh, wonderful.
I want each of our listeners to know that all the things that we've talked about today are there for them. There's nothing special about us. There's nothing special about me in that I've been given something that no one else is given. What is special is that when the opportunity came for me to reach for it, I somehow found the courage to do it. And it's not for the weak of heart, but it is for the person, every single one of us, who wants to live with a whole heart and get to experience life being happy and healthy and whole, and exactly how we were meant to live. And that is that birthright that you spoke of right in the very beginning, Mel. That is our birthright, to be free, to be joyful, to be open, to receive and to give, and to fully be in partnership with the consciousness of that creative life force, and to then experience just what that partnership has in store. You cannot even conceive of it from where you are. No. But the moment that you raise your vibrational frequency, the doors will be open to you.
They so will. Thank you so much. You guys, everyone, happiness, it's an inside job, but it's equally available to every single one of us. And we're living in a time now where we can choose to drop whatever baggage we've been carrying around. We can drop the old story. It starts with just a choice. Look, you're powerful beyond measure, and all you need to do is tap into the divine power that created you and follow the guidance you're given. You were born to be happy, experience joy, and live an abundant, blissed-out, spacious life. I want to hear what you thought of this interview, so hit reply and tell me your thoughts. I look forward to hearing from you. Marcy, again, it was such a pleasure to have you here with me. Thank you so much.
The pleasure and the honor was mine. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Mel, and I look forward to next time.
Me too.